So Peter, thank
Hello.
you for being with us. There will be no faking of British accents at all during this recording. So thank you for being with us and for talking about Counterweight. So we have been going now for nearly a year. If you're looking at how we kind of started very informally with the Discord server. So we're trying to kind of give people practical advice and sort of guide them through trying to make things, help them address things in their organization in the most effective way with the least risk to themselves. Obviously, that's a very sort of tricky issue, and most of our people are employees, but some of them are in universities. So you've seen most of this obviously in the universities, and it's been academics who have come after you, but you see it more broadly, of course, in Portland. What's going on over there at the moment?
In Portland, the city, or Portland State?
Either.
Well, Portland is definitely not in good condition right now. It's really a shell of its former self, and frankly, it's heartbreaking. I've never seen so many homeless people. It's actually one of the few things I don't blame the mayor for. But here's an interesting story. So the woman, I think you know her, Cindy, who lives in the house, she had 2 of her trucks stolen in one night immediately in front of our house. Two trucks. And if this weren't extraordinary enough, they found one of her trucks in a local municipality. And when she called the police about retrieving the truck, and then keep in mind, these are recorded lines. So people are talking recorded phone lines. The woman basically told her, well, why would we search for the people who stole your truck? The DA, Mike Schmidt, is just going to release them. What's the point of, why would we do that? Mm. And, Cindy said to me, she was just stunned by that. Like on a recorded line, someone's telling her. But anyway, I think that the larger issue is the DA does not prosecute folks who commit crimes. And I'm not talking about, smoking pot, which is legal, or selling large amounts of pot. I'm talking about like actual crimes, like they don't prosecute people who destroy storefronts or assault other people. The DA just lets them go. So, and in San Francisco, they don't prosecute petty crimes. So you've seen all the videos of people just going in stores and just taking anything they want. So it's a problem. And I think one of the lessons that I've learned, Helen, is the importance of local governance, which I always took for granted. I just assumed that the police would catch criminals, or at least attempt to. The DA would do his job and prosecute people. The mayor would be sane. It just never occurred to me that there would be such a fundamental collapse of the system in which the people in those roles wouldn't discharge their primary responsibilities. It literally never occurred to me. I mean, why would it? I had 53 and a half years that went, and everything went along quite well, and then all of a sudden we have an anomaly in the system.
We've had a couple actually, just 2 police officers come to Counterweight, finding it extremely difficult to do their jobs. One of them in Australia and one of them in the UK. So that's a different situation to the US. But are you finding public officials are finding it difficult now? Are they intimidated out of addressing the issues that they should be addressing?
Yeah, I think so. And I don't have any contact with the police other than the people I do jujitsu with. And basically what I've learned from them is that they're very hesitant. I have to make sure I don't reveal any confidences now, but they're very hesitant to arrest people of certain minority communities for fear of being accused racist. So they just kind of let them go. And so the consequence of that is not what many on the left think, or for that matter on the right. The consequence of that is you get more dead young black men. And the mayor of the city, Ted Wheeler, he just reinstated it, but there was a gun within the police department. They had crime units and the crime prevention task force, but they eliminated the unit because they found that I think it was 53 or 54% of those contacts were with African Americans. and they deemed it racist. But the problem with that is that the reason that they were primarily going into African American communities is because that's where the homicide rates were highest. And so then when they declared it racist, the consequence of that is that you have now more young dead black men. And so they're not coming after, middle-aged or late middle-aged white guys like me, 54, almost 55, Helen. My birthday's next month.
I remember.
Yes, thank you. I don't know what I expect. A birthday card. No, but I think that it's a failure at a fundamental level to be honest about the nature of our problems. I really believe that. We're just not being honest. We're not having conversations. We're not talking about it. And every time you attempt to have a conversation with somebody, the consequence of that is either they'll say, well, we're not going to speak to you, you're a bigot, or the people on the right will say, well, why do we want to have a, nobody wants to converse anymore. That's the problem. Mm. And people aren't learning how to converse in the university systems. In fact, they're learning just the opposite.
And this is one of the things that we exist for, is we want people to be able to do empirical scholarship into all kinds of things, even things that some people would rather not know, such as whether, psychological differences exist between men and women. So we're one of the studies that we very much want to fund is looking at how this is affecting medicine. At the moment, within a lot of medical journals, a lot of race and gender and post-colonial theory is getting in and replacing the science. So right. I think that the point that you made, that a lack of empirical scholarship is going to affect the people who are most vulnerable. And they are going to be the people who are poorest, the people who are on the lowest rung of society. That is going to be disproportionately racial minorities. So
as you have said repeatedly, what we need to do is we need the best available methods to us. We need to use the most robust scholarship. And I think that this is a vital point. That should never be political. What you do with that is almost purely political. Like, how many African Americans are pulled over by the police? Well, then we need some kind of a policy. But if you don't have accurate data to form that policy on, it's even worse than throwing darts at a dartboard. You're led, it's the tail wagging the dog. You're led by your ideology. And so nobody should be against the best empirical methods to solve our problems, right? And let me give you an example of something that you did not mention that's highly political, is detransitioning. You could never get that past an IRB, Institutional Review Board, the human subjects. You could never, you'd never find that. And the reason for that is it's not technological, it's not a matter of methodology. It's that the dominant moral orthodoxy won't allow it. And so our engines of knowledge production are compromised because they're leashed, they're subject to the conspicuous intrusion by ideologues. But I do want to say that, the protocols that have been set up for human subjects and such, those are at least initially, the genesis of those came about as a result of good reasons. But now it's almost purely ideological.
Yeah, we were speaking to Deborah So about this, and her book, The End of Gender, is wonderful. That looks at that, and of course this is again the problem with minorities within minorities, isn't it? It's the same problem that we see with ex-Muslims when they are not allowed to speak against sort of dominant ideologies within their own communities, and we see it with people who have detransitioned or who are trans but don't understand gender identity in a critical social justice way. And trying to get these voices out there. I mean, I think 16% of the cases that we've had have been people forced to affirm some belief in gender identity that they don't have, or being concerned that their children are being taught unscientific information about how gender works. And
so I guess the analog there would be to those people. So if somebody has a view about that, I'm thinking I can almost guarantee you don't have this on your island, but you know, in sports events, people stand when they sing the national anthem. Do you have that over there?
we do.
Do you really?
We don't put our hands on our hearts or anything dramatic, but we stand.
You stand up?
Hmm?
You do? You stand up for
We
those?
stand for God Save the Queen, yes.
Well,
It just happened that some of our football players did not stand for God Save the Queen, and they were booed, and then there was a big drama about it in the news.
Okay, well, I was wrong. But see how easy that was? I was wrong. I made a mistake. That's what rational people do. But the analog is that there are people who want to force views of gender on other people, and I think that's somewhat analogous to wanting people or making them stand for the flag. And if you say something you don't believe in, that's just a show. That's something that's external to demonstration. But ultimately what that does over time is that creates resentment, and it corrodes one's fidelity. And I think it's a terrible mistake to do that. And the other thing is that nobody's living authentically. So I don't know what you mean and you don't know what I mean. And if we don't know what each other means, we can never have an honest relationship with each other because nobody knows what they mean.
The pressure to conform, to either stand or kneel, or use certain terminology or not use certain terminology, it's creating a culture of fear. It's been evident in the universities for some time. It's getting more increasingly evident in employment. And what would you advise people who are feeling intimidated and silenced by this to do?
Stand up, fight back. Don't be a coward. You're not alone. You have a lot of people like yourself who will help you. I'll also tell you in no uncertain terms, I don't know when it is, but this has an expiration date. This ideology is a moral fad that is not sustainable, and the tide will turn. I can promise you that. I can tell you with total confidence. If you look back at history, almost every age has had or maybe even every age has had a dominant ideology, and the people trapped within that ideology have a kind of myopia. They have a view that the ideology in which they're living is the universal truth, or it will never go away, or it's timeless. But that's just not true. That's just a feature of the architecture of our moral mind.
This too shall pass.
This too shall pass. The question is, at what cost? What damage will this do to our institutions? That I cannot answer. But I can tell you in no uncertain terms that this ideology is not sustainable, and it will, for a fact, fall into the dustbin of history.
Let's help it do that.